All right, everybody, a couple more seconds here. Actually, I'm looking at the attendance. It looks like we have a full boat, so no one else can come in. So let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the How to Create an Epic Pitch Deck webinar. And over the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to show you exactly how to present your deck to investors and how to overcome the mistakes they most commonly see in a pitch deck. I see so many websites offering these beautiful PowerPoint investor template designs, and the people creating them know nothing about getting funded. The problem with those templates are that if you found them online, so did 10,000 other companies, and you want your presentation to be unique. So it's okay to start with a template for inspiration, but the end result should be radically different. This is my least favorite slide in the presentation, but I have to show you my accomplishments so you know I'm qualified to show you what investors want. My name is Mike Volkin. I've been a serial entrepreneur for over 20 years. I've built and sold 3 companies. I've written 5 books, 1 bestseller. I've been on over 80 radio shows, TV, and other media like USA Today, Life Hacker, Good Morning America, Entrepreneur on Fire, and so many more. I've helped dozens of entrepreneurs get funded. So what you'll learn. Today you will learn what slides you must include in a pitch deck, how to make those slides look crazy awesome, and how to get an investor to want more information. More than likely, when you first pitch to an investor, it isn't going to be a one-meeting close. It's only a means to give them more information to warrant another meeting. Those pitches you see on Shark Tank that end in a handshake and a deal, that's not a close. After the participants leave the show, they have many more meetings with the sharks before the funding is done. In fact, over 50% of the handshake deals you see on Shark Tank are not funded. Okay, I should know I've had a half a dozen of my friends in the show, and one of them was on twice. In fact, I was almost on the show myself in season 5. I am assuming at this point you have a business model in mind, you've done research on the competitive landscape, and you are considering getting funded. So there is no one right way to create a pitch deck. On the left of this table are the most common slides you will see in a pitch deck, and along the top are investors and VCs that have seen thousands and thousands of pitch decks. And as you can see, none of them agree on what slide should be in a standard deck. So don't worry about what should or should not be included. In the end, your pitch deck will be unique. On average, though, a deck will take about 14 to 20 revisions to really start to come together nicely. So let's look at some pitch deck essentials. Today, we're going to go through the most common slides that an investor will want to see. I will show you what should be on the title slide, how to communicate your problem and solution, the common mistakes you will typically see on the market size slide, how to correctly display the go-to-market strategy and competitor matrix slide. I'll also show you what to show on the team slide, what information should go on the use of funds slide, how to best explain your exit strategy, and what needs to go on the conclusion slide. So let's dive in. To nail the title slide, you need to develop a 7-second or less sentence that gets the investor's attention right from the start. You're going to need that funny, quirky, crazy, unique, why didn't I think of that aha moment from an investor? Using your elevator pitch would be too long, and using your tagline would be too short, but it's acceptable to use your slogan or an adaptation of your slogan. So let's look at some examples. Southwest uses, "Ding, you are now free to move about the country." Most people hear "you are now free to move about the cabin," not the country. Uber uses "everyone's private driver," which means they see themselves as providing a service where everyone can have a private driver, not just the wealthy. And there's a website called Tradesy where you can buy and sell used clothing, and they use "Tradesy turns your closet into a pile of cash." Much like Southwest, they are doing a play on words, as most people think of a pile of clothes in a closet, not a pile of cash. As you develop your title slide sentence, try and develop it with a visual in mind. Images actually resonate with people longer than words do. Here's Crowdsourcia's title slide. Honestly, this went through about 40 revisions and took us longer to do than the rest of the deck combined. So the sentence we came up with is, if Quora and Upwork had a clever, inquisitive, and really cool baby, ... that would be Crowdsourcia. This slide will set the mood and interest level for the investor and have a good first impression. impressions. So, excuse me, it's critical that you spend time in this. Get others involved, roundtable ideas off each other. Problem slide. This slide should state the pain that your product or service addresses. Common pain includes taking up someone's time, costing someone money, or increasing someone's vulnerability. So time, money, and security, basically. If your company improves one of those three, even just a little, you're in good shape. But here's where many companies fall short. You also want to state on the slide that the market you are going after has evolved and the current solutions don't solve the client's need or problem in the way that your company does. So it's not enough just to have your company, product, or service help alleviate a problem. You also have to show that the market's evolved and the current solutions don't fit that need. Now, solution slide. Here's where your value proposition comes into play. We talked a few minutes ago about using your slogan or an adaptation of that for your title slide, but the value proposition is a bit different. The value proposition is probably the number one statement that determines whether people will bother learning more about your company, because if your solution doesn't matter to them, then they don't care. A value proposition is a promise of value to be delivered. It's the primary reason a prospect should buy from you. So a value proposition should state three main things as briefly as possible. Number one, it explains how your product solves customer problems. Number two, it states the benefit it delivers. And number three, it tells the ideal customer why they should buy from you and not from your competition. Your value proposition is used on so many aspects of your business, your investor deck, your homepage, your collateral material. It is a sentence you want to make as irresistible as possible. Solution slide. Here's an example, okay? Here's Airbnb. Everybody's heard of Airbnb. They use a simple sentence, easy for anyone to understand and identify with, and obviously they're going after the money pain point here. You see, they say they're a web platform where users can rent out their space to host travelers to save money, make money, and share culture. Pretty easy. Everybody can identify with that. Okay, the market size slide. One of the biggest mistakes I commonly see in pitch decks has to be on the market size slide. Let's take this fictitious example I made for you. I'm going to show you this common mistake. Scary Mary's cupcakes. People spend $855 billion a year on food. If we can get each person on this planet to eat one of our cupcakes once a week, we would make blah, blah, blah. I see investors cringe when they read this. I've been in rooms where the presenter would say this and 20 investors all hang their heads simultaneously. Okay, once an investor doubts your market size, they're going to doubt the credibility of your entire deck. And when that happens, they can stick a fork in you because you're done. So you intended to wow them with this huge number, and all you did was draw skepticism. So don't worry about the size of your market. Investors don't really care about that. What they care about is how your product or service fits into that market. This isn't about some huge number. It's about your offering and how that market fits into it. So what you want to do here is base the market size on your current traction multiplied by your users over time. So a statement like, in the last 6 months, we captured X amount of customers, which represents X amount of the market. Don't get carried away with the numbers. Just show that the market is interesting and that you have the ability and experience to go after it. Well, Mike, what happens if I'm pre-revenue? Don't worry. The worst thing you can do here is pretend you know your market share. Instead, show the market share for your competitors. Investors will use that number as a benchmark. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but there are 3 acronyms an investor may throw at you during the Q&A, and these should also be in your deck, the TAM, SAM, and SOM. I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs get tripped up in this in the Q&A when they don't know what these acronyms means. TAM stands for the total available market. SAM stands for the served available market. In other words, the size of that market demand you could serve, and SOM stands for the share of the market. How much of that market you'll realistically obtain. And I've showed you this graph here so you kind of see the incremental differences between the 3. Now, the goal of the go-to-market slide is for you to demonstrate how you will get your product or service to your customers without blowing your investors' money too early. Be sure to show how you will drive revenue and what sales channel you will target. Will you be selling direct to the customer? Will you be licensing your product? Are partnerships the way to drive revenue? What about mergers and acquisitions? At this point, the investor knows what your market size is and how you're going to go after it. Some other key questions to answer on this slide. What do you expect your customer acquisition cost to be? In other words, how much money are you going to spend in order to get a customer? What are the main risks to your model? What's your plan for addressing them? What's your sales funnel and production process look like? Are there any key partnerships already in place? That's a big one. If you've been talking to retailers about getting your product on shelves and you might already have a good PO or order in place, definitely mention that. How will you gauge your progress? And what would success look like? Now, don't over-engineer this slide. Just show you have an actionable plan. The team slide will show you that you're the right team to carry out this plan. Let's look at some examples. Note that none of these are complicated slides. The graphic in the upper left is a simple flow chart. The one on the upper right shows a few sales channels targeting enterprise customers, and the one on the bottom is a pharmaceutical company that is taking their product to bigger and bigger markets. But no matter how you want to display your go-to-market strategy, make sure your strategy is clearly displayed and flows nicely. The competitor matrix slide. Usually this slide is left out of pitch decks, but it's one of the most important. Now, don't pretend like you have no competitors. There are always competitors. If you don't tell the investor who the competition is, they're going to find out for themselves. Tell the investor about your competition and do it in an honest and accurate way. And don't downplay them. If there's a competitor that is the big 800-pound gorilla in the space with unlimited money and resources, then say that. Here's a company that has decided to display their competitive matrix with the features on the left and the competitors on the top. And you can see that there's different features checked and X'd along the columns here. And you can, if you have room on the right, call out 3 or 4 big features and your price. This is a very valid and easy to understand way to display your competitor matrix. No matter how you display your matrix, your goal is to show your competitive advantage and show it in a way that can't easily be repeated by your competitors. Sometimes just a graph isn't enough, especially if your pitch deck will be emailed to an investor and shared. They won't have that narrative. So it's a good idea to actually put your competitive advantage in writing on the slide. Come up with your own competitive advantage in a simple 2 to 3 sentence format. Another really great way to do the competitive matrix is to graphically represent your company or your service. If your company doesn't have a straightforward product or service and it can be graphically represented, there are a few places in your pitch deck you can do this. I've seen this done after the competitive matrix. On a few occasions, it fits in nicely here. Right at the beginning is also a nice place. People understand graphics better than text. So if you can graphically represent how someone would use your product or service, it will connect and resonate with the investor better. Okay, time for a quiz. Investors mainly invest in great business models, interesting niches, or people. Now, the keyword here is mainly invest in. Investors care about all of these, but the one that they are most interested in is people. Ask any seasoned investor, and they're going to tell you that the right team can make a profit doing just about anything. So your team slide is critical. You need to put yourself in the best light as briefly as possible. So let's talk about the team slide. This is perhaps the easiest slide in the deck to mess up. I've seen people make this slide so complicated and messy looking. This slide should take you only a few minutes to make. I've seen companies use drawings and characters and caricatures instead of photos. I've seen companies take 4 slides to explain all the accomplishments of each team member. My God, don't do this. Here's a simple, clean, and easy to understand layout. Each team member gets their own column. Get a nice, professional, high-quality picture on there with your name and position. Under the headers should be bulleted items that showcases your years of experience, and that's pretty much it. You don't want to include your years of working at a frozen yogurt shop if you're trying to get an investment from an e-commerce website. Unless, of course, it is an e-commerce website selling the frozen yogurt stores, but you know what I'm trying to say. But nonetheless, put your experience, any relevant degrees or accomplishments or 2, and any awards or certifications you may have. This is what investors care about. This dream team is perhaps one of the best companies ever formed. Three's Company, that old cheesy, super hilarious TV show from the 70s and 80s. Every so often I can't fall asleep at night, so I wake up at like 2 a.m. and pop in my Three's Company DVD and laugh myself silly. Yes, I have a Three's Company DVD. It was a gift, so don't make fun. Okay, anyway, moving along. Let's get serious here. Use of funds slide. In the past month, I've seen probably 20 pitch decks, and 15 of them didn't have this slide on there. It's so common to leave out, but remember the slide I showed you at the beginning of this webinar, the one with the table and all the dots that showed which investor liked to see which slide. The use of funds slide was one they almost all agreed that should be in every deck. So don't leave it out. Investors want to know what you plan on doing with their money and how you're going to use it to achieve their goals. And some great examples to put on this slide are building an inside sales team, expanding your marketing team, building a support team, buying inventory to reduce production costs, or product development, focus on entrepreneur sales, expanding your product offering, expanding your service offering. In other words, adding more SKUs or products for your customers to buy. As a tip, if you have already raised a round, you have to put this in the slide somewhere. This is a great place to put it. Okay, you have to let investors know that they're not the first investors to come into the deal. If you have enough of a breakdown on how you would like to use the funds and a good idea of a timeline, it's best to graphically represent it. As I said earlier, if you can graphically represent something, it'll stick in someone's mind longer and make more of an impression. Exit strategy. Stay with me, guys. We're almost to the end. I hope you're learning a lot. So now we're on the exit strategy slide. Investors are going to want to see that you have an exit strategy. And the nicer way to put that is they're going to want to know what your plan is for giving them their money back and then some. Investors have two goals: to get their money back and to get their money back tenfold. They're not looking for a 15 or even 50% return on their investment after 7 years. They can just passively invest it in their stock market if that's the case. Investors' money is definitely expensive, but if you use the money properly, you can grow your company so much more quickly. Plus, oftentimes, they're great advisors. Exit strategy. There are many types of exits, but here are a few examples. Initial public offering, also called IPOs. These are rare. You'll see them when you're watching CNBC or read an article about the stock market. Mergers and acquisitions, also called M&As. This is where a larger company acquires a startup to gain a strategic advantage. Now, many larger companies have entire M&A departments. Their goal is to spend their entire year analyzing and buying smaller companies. Happens all the time. In fact, sometimes they often have a quota where they have to acquire a certain number of companies every quarter or every year. Finding a niche that a huge company can't or won't service that complements their existing offerings will make you ripe for a buyout. And there's also royalties or revenue sharing. That's another type of exit strategy. Some companies are not good targets for either M&As or IPOs, but they will still have investment potential. These companies can return multiples of VCs and angel investments through royalties or revenue sharing. Most common types of companies are oil and gas or movie deals. They're all structured this way. So are our book series and stuff like that. So here's an example of an exit strategy slide from mint.com. They displayed the bigger companies in their space and gave reasons why for each company they could be ripe for a buyout. That's pretty clever. I like it. So conclusion slide, and probably the conclusion of this webinar. We saved the easiest for last. The conclusion slide simply displays your logo and should include your contact information. Why is that? Because your deck, if it's good enough, is going to get shared. So you need a way for someone to contact you for more information if you're not giving a live narrative to the investor. So you've reached the end. Congrats. If you found this webinar helpful, please encourage others to sign up for it. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure. I'm very interested in following up with all of you to see how your business progresses. So please connect with me on LinkedIn. But thanks again, everyone, and have a great day.